College planning can feel overwhelming, but today we've got you covered. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the My Father Said podcast, where we discuss all things faith, finance, and family. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan. I'm both a father and a son.
I'm Tim. I'm also a father and a son.
And today we're going to be talking to you guys about college planning. Step number one, don't go to college. There you go.
Hey, just hit the lottery ticket, and there you go. You don't even have to worry about anything.
Yeah. Either win the lottery.
Make it harder than it needs to be.
Win the lottery or don't go to college, and then all of a sudden you don't have this college bill.
Yep.
No. So we have found in this industry that not for all parents, but we're starting to see it more and more that parents want to pay for their child's education or at least help out. But that is expensive. You know, it's I think we were looking at it before the podcast. The average cost of college tuition for 1 year across the nation is $14,400, and then it's $27,000 if you're an out-of-state student. So
right.
That doesn't sound like a lot. Let's bring it down to South Carolina, though. Furman, it costs on average $61,000 a year for someone to go to school.
Holy smokes!
Yeah,
man, is that for the full ride or is that?
No, that's 1 year.
That's 1 year. Okay,
that is 1 year of tuition. So, yeah.
Wonder what most of your salaries are out there. If it's above 60, you just
you break even. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So that's South Carolina, and then across the country, the average of college tuition increases by about 5% every year. So, again, 5% doesn't sound like a lot. You know, it's a little more than inflation. It's right up there with like healthcare inflation and stuff. But 5% on $60,000, that'll add up. So
yeah.
So we want to talk to you guys today about some of the options that are available to you if you want to, help your kids out with that. And we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah. So if you're wanting to invest and kind of like, hey, I want to hedge this 5% increase year over year, what can I do? I got some extra cash. We got some birthday money coming in. What are we going to do with it? Well, there's a couple accounts out there that we would probably direct you in if you're wanting to use these funds for education with some benefits. Mm-hmm. The first one is the ESA or Educational Savings Account. This is a tax advantage account, meaning any of the funds you put in there, they're going to go tax deferred. Now, if you use those funds on education, any of that growth that you're using on education, you get that all tax free. It's going to go 100% of the gains are going to go towards your educational expense. And so you put some money in there early on, you give it time to grow, and all that growth is just going to work for you, and that's going to save you a ton of money and your kid a ton of money. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the main benefits of the educational savings accounts. Now, with an ESA, this is the one of the two. There are some limitations that, always are going to come up because, the government needs to get their money too.
Sure.
So they put limits on these accounts of how much you can put in it per year because they don't want you to overload it. So there's a $2,000 limit. Now, there's also an income limit. If you make too much money, they're like, hey, this guy, he doesn't need to worry about putting money into an ESA. He's got too much money.
Yeah.
So some of those limits are if you're below if you're single, that would be $95,000 if you're a single parent. And then if you're married, filing together, you just double that. And it's if you're making over $190,000.
Right. So not only can you only put in $2,000, if you are fortunate enough to be making a higher income, that also kind of hurts you because then you won't be able to really put money in there.
Right. So let's see. Another couple features that are nifty about an ESA as opposed to the other account is you're going to be able to invest in a wide range of investments. Anything pretty much in the stock market you're going to have access to investing in. You'll come to hear Ryan talk about that's the 529 is limited based on your state and 529 you're putting it in.
So if I wanted to take my ESA and I wanted to put all of it in NVIDIA or Tesla, could I do that?
You certainly could. Now,
nice.
If you tried to do that with an advisor, they'd probably faint. They'd say that's a risky biscuit right there.
Oh, that's good.
So another thing to note about the ESAs are, let's say, you want to take a season off and you want to maybe not go straight into college. Well, you have time to let those funds keep growing, and let's say you go back to school in your mid-20s. You can start using those funds then. Right. The only limit, though, is when you get to closing in on the year 30, you're going to have to use all those funds or change them into someone else's name that's under the age of 30 that's an immediate family member. So there is a time restraint on how long those funds can stay invested in an ESA.
Right. Yeah. And another thing with the ESAs too, we're talking about college funding, but let's just talk about education. If, let's say somebody has a newborn and they want to start saving for college, and then when the child's 15 years old, they decide to put them in a private school. Like they can pull money out of the ESA and pay for like K through 12, can't they?
Yep. That's another great thing. You have a lot more flexibility and access to the money with what you're contributing to, as long as it's going towards educational purposes. Right. And you keep the receipts, file them with your CPA. You're gonna reap the rewards of the tax-free growth.
Man, that sounded like you've done this a time or two. Keep the receipts and get a CPA.
Hey, this was my first rodeo. It's my second. So.
Oh, good. Well, cool. So that's the nuts and bolts of the ESA. The other one is the 529. Full transparency. When we are talking to people about college planning, we normally steer them towards the 529. Just because you're going to see there's just a lot more that you can do, or a lot more bang for your buck that you can get with the 529. So 529 is similar to the ESA, where it is an education account. You put money in, and if you use those funds for education purposes, there's no taxes on the growth. One of the benefits, and this varies by state, but we're going to talk about South Carolina. If you are a South Carolina resident and you fund a South Carolina 529, you will actually that will help offset your state income tax in South Carolina. So neither one of them the ESA doesn't give a tax benefit, and the 529 gives a little tax benefit, but it's better than nothing.
Right.
And then, the other thing with the 529 is the contribution limits are so much higher than the ESA. The 529 contribution limits follow the annual gift tax exclusion, which for 2025 is $19,000. So theoretically, if somebody was, we were talking about the ESA, a married couple that's making over $190,000, and they want to put away $10,000 for their kid. Well, they can't put it in an ESA, but what they can do is they can put it into a 529. They're still below that gift tax exclusion. Everything's fine.
Yep. Or what about a grandparent who's having to take a RMD, a required minimum distribution?
You can put it in the 529 if you want.
Is that going to help lower their state taxes?
It'll help lower their state taxes if they are in South Carolina. If they are in a different state, it's not going to do anything for them.
Depend on their state.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
So, let's see. What else do we have for the 529? Oh, those can also be used for education, K through 12 education. So originally when the ESA was created, it was for K through 12 school, and then they opened it up for college. And then the 529 was opened specifically for college, and then they opened it up for K through 12. So if you've got an ESA or a 529, you can use it for college, or you can use it for K through 12 school.
Yep.
So, let's see. The 529, we were talking about the ESA. If you are a married couple, or a single person, you've got those income limits before you can't contribute.
Right.
529, that doesn't exist. You can make as much money or as little money as you want. You will be able to fund that 529.
Man. So. Yeah. So it in that sense, it seems like 529's the go-to. What about the investments in a 529?
Yep. So it varies by state what the state chooses to put into the 529. But we were joking about putting everything in Tesla or in NVIDIA for the ESA.
Right.
The ESA, you have got as much flexibility as the broker dealer that you have the account with. So you can put anything in there. The 529s, you are limited to basically what the state offers. And for South Carolina, they've got age-based portfolios and they've got static portfolios. The age-based is exactly how it sounds. Based on their age, they will move it more and more conservative or more cash ready for when they go to college. Static, you put it in there and it doesn't change unless you tell them. But it's basically, you've got, age-based conservative, age-based moderate, age-based aggressive, static conservative, static moderate, static aggressive, and like a couple of other ones. So they're not bad funds, but you are certainly limited compared to the ESA.
Yeah. It's more of sounds like controlled environment. So you're kind of limiting your investors to how much, risk they can actually put themselves.
I'd be curious. I wonder why they'll let the ESA be any investment, but the 529s, the state gets to pick what it's going to be. I wonder what the thought process is behind that. So.
Yeah. So
if we ever find out, we'll let you know.
Maybe on a later podcast.
There you go. All right. So one of the things that we've also ran into is when someone is saving for college, for their kids, they'll bring up a scenario. Hey, what if my child doesn't go to college? What happens if my child doesn't use all the money in the 529? What happens if they get some scholarships and that offsets how much they have to pay? What happens to that money that's in the account? That's a fair question. It's a question that we get a lot, and you've got options. So for the ESA, it's like you were saying, if you get to 30 and you haven't used everything, let's say you finished college and you had a little money left over in your ESA, the ESA owner can basically just change the beneficiary, and then the money's not wasted per se. It's just for a different beneficiary.
Yep. Yep.
And then why don't you talk about the 529s, because you did a little more research on that than I did.
So 529s, similar type scenario with you can change your beneficiary to an immediate family member, same type thing. They do not have an age limit restriction in there. Now let's say you have money in there and you're like, what are my options? Well, we just discussed option one, change the beneficiary, keep it in that account covered from taxes, and you're also getting that tax benefit state-wise. The next thing you can think about is, hey, do I want to think about helping my kid or the child that this account's for? Do I want to advance their retirement? Mm-hmm. And as of, I think it was 2021, the Secure 2.0 Act,
yep.
They allowed you to roll over funds from your 529 into a Roth IRA. So you can do that penalty-free, tax-free. There's nothing other than a few underlying conditions that need to be met. Some of those are that 529 needs to have been open for 15 years, a running time of 15 years. So if you're thinking
Quick
like
15,
yeah, if you're thinking about opening up a 529 to go ahead and front load a Roth IRA, think I needed to have this in there for 15 years before that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
That's one thing. And then also there's also limits on how much in a lifetime you can roll over from a 529 to a Roth IRA for a set person, and that, I think it was 35,000.
Yeah. Last time we looked was 35. That may have slightly changed in 2025, but when we looked at it, it was a $35,000 lifetime conversion limit.
Right. So, and then even take it a step further, if you're trying to roll all those funds over at once, well, they limit you at $7,000 a year, because that's our IRA max contributions if you're under the age of 50.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're over the age of 50, you can do an extra 1,000,
Right.
but you're capped at 7, and that's per year. And then after that, you're kind of just on a year-by-year basis until you hit your cap. Now, hopefully if you're doing it right, you won't ever have to worry about that cap. You just go ahead and get the funds out before, or use them on school.
Mm-hmm.
So
now you made a comment about the contribution limits, converting it from the 529 to the IRA. If they were to increase the contribution limit into an IRA to say 7,500 or 7,800 or something like that, the amount that you could convert each year, would that also increase, or is it just, hey, 7,000 across the board?
no, it's going to go up based on what the annual contribution limit is set by the IRS.
Cool.
So,
Cool.
Yep.
That's cool. So, that's, again, 1,000-foot view of 529s and ESAs. They're both useful. They both accomplish the goal they're trying to do. We typically steer people, especially here in South Carolina, to the 529, based off of the flexibility with the tax benefits, the limit that you can put in, the ability to convert it later on. That's normally where we steer them. But let's say you didn't want to do any of that for your kids. You said, hey, I want them to pay for college themselves. I want them to figure it out, which that's completely fine, right? There's nothing that says you have to pay for your kids' college.
Some skin in the game.
Put
Some skin in there.
Absolutely. And so if you're of that mindset, but you still want to help them out, we've got something else we want to go over with you real quick about just like scholarships and where to find them and stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and get into that.
Yeah, there's just like finance, scholarships are an evolving world. There's so much to them. There's a lot changing. So, today's information could be outdated in the next 2 to 3 years. You got to keep track and keep checking back in with your pro on this, whether it be at the school with us or whoever, because information's always changing. But let's say you come from a background where like, I'm going to be the first college grad in my family. Mm-hmm. Nobody else has done it. Nobody's ever had the funds to do it. What do I do? Well, first we'd probably say get in contact with your guidance counselor and really push them to help you, because that's what they're there for.
Right. Yeah.
They're there to guide you and tell you all that they can about scholarships and how to do it as cheap and as efficient as possible.
Did you have a guidance counselor in high school?
I did, yep.
We had one, and she quit like halfway through the year, and then they just never brought anybody back. We had to figure out college by ourselves.
Hey, there's forge the way for the rest of them.
Yeah.
Left a manual on how to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So here is a couple 10. I think it's 10 things that we would say. Focus on these specific areas, and this will put you light years ahead of a lot of your other applicants that are applying for these scholarships, and help you be competitive and reach all the efficiency. There's a lot of scholarship money out there that doesn't even get claimed every year. So if you just go out and you just apply to as many as you can, there's a good chance you're going to at least hit one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so like some of the things you can do is, let's say you've got an idea of where you want to go to school. Some universities will offer scholarships that are specific to that university. So check that out. Like if there's one that you are really wanting to go to, check it out. If there's none that you're, set on, that doesn't really, you could figure that out later. But there are universities that will offer scholarships specific to that university.
Yep. Yep. And you would most likely call them, check with them, and say, hey, I want to go here. These are my limitations. Tell me everything I can do. What all is available to me. And they'll be able to give you the scoop on what to do. So, next thing, scholarships out there. There's so many different ways to get scholarships. Anybody, any business, government, municipality can offer some type of scholarship. You know, there used to be books in the library. You could go to see some of these things, and you could just read through the book. Well, thank goodness we're at the day of the internet. There's websites out there that we would direct you to say, hey, cut down on some of this legwork. This is me. This is my strengths. What are the good scholarships for me? This is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And so we would point you to websites like FastWeb. You know, they're the largest and most popular scholarship platform. There's scholarships.com. That's an easy one to remember. There's CAPEX. There's Niche. There's a few of them out there. You just get on there. You create a profile. You create what you're trying to do. And then they're going to do a lot of the legwork for you of, hey, these are the scholarships that would probably be best suited to you. And it kind of helps, you know, you, the student, get after it of getting the scholarship money.
Yeah. And, you know, we were sitting there talking about the university. I was going to say another scholarship, and I forgot. But not only do certain universities offer, like, college-specific scholarships, there are some that will offer scholarships based off of, you know, what field you're studying in. You know, like, I'm going to just make something up here. Like, if you go to a school and you're in the nursing program, that college might not, you know, have a scholarship for you if you were doing something else. But since you're taking nursing, they have a scholarship ready for people in that subject. So,
yep. Let's see what else we got on here.
This one I like this one because I've seen this twice. Companies will oftentimes pay for people's education. We have got a client right now that is in engineering school, and there is a company in the upstate that he knows. I think he's got some friends that work there, that they will actually pay for people's undergrad, and then, you know, they have to sign a contract that they'll work there for a certain amount of time. That's great. There was a guy that I knew at Charleston Southern. He graduated and went to work for Pepsi, and Pepsi, I think, paid for part of his college, if I'm not making that up. But that is something. If you want to go to school, you know you want to do something, you don't know what you want to major in, or you don't know what you want to do, look at one of those jobs that will, you know, pay for part of it or all of it.
Yeah, because they need workers, and if you're a quality person, they will benefit from you being a good worker, and then you will also benefit from them helping you out with your scholarship money. So it's a win-win scenario in that case. So, you know, you talk about that as well. You have different nonprofits, different churches, different things in your community that will also, you know, depending on what you're doing and how your line of work. If you're going into nonprofit, or you're trying to help with grants or any type thing like that, there's certain foundations out there that'll help give you a scholarship for that. So reach out to your local church, your nonprofit, any of these, your chamber of commerce, anybody in your area. Say, hey, what can I do that's local? You know, because you're probably gonna get a lot more in a one-to-one connection, and in today's time and age, you know, it's probably not as competitive one-to-one. Everybody does tend to favor that online application. So if you get in front of somebody, you're going to automatically step up to the front of the line.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the religious stuff. So my wife, Alexia, the church that she went to growing up, there was actually a guy who made like a scholarship for a foundation or whatever you want to call it. And that Alexia actually got that, so part of her college was paid for because of that. And then another thing, again, Charleston Southern, Dad is a Baptist preacher, and we are Baptists. We got a slight scholarship or lower tuition because of that. We went to a Baptist school, and so that's another thing.
Yep. A lot of different things. You just got to get creative and start asking questions. Another couple things you can do. We have different merit-based scholarships that are out there, and that's where you just want to make sure you're doing all the right things in school, getting good grades, getting good attendance. You want to show the college that, hey, this is my reputation back at my school. This is my resume. Mm-hmm. This is what I have to bring to your school. How much do you want to pay me to be a good student? Because that's what their incentive is, to give you those scholarships, because they want to get the best students in there so they can get the best exam scores, and they need great students in there. So that's their incentive. If you're doing all the hard work, they're going to be hungry to get you in there.
Yeah, and there's quite a few of those merit scholarships. I think the biggest one that comes to mind is like sports. People will get full ride scholarships for going to play sports. Now, that's not everybody, but that does happen. Some of the other ones is, if you are just musically talented, there are scholarships that you can get for, you can go to college to play music or something. Mm-hmm. You'll have that, if you're, very science savvy and there's like science fairs or something, you could get scholarships to go to a university to do that. So
yeah, just be an athlete.
Yeah, just be
6'6", be able to dunk.
Absolutely. And then you don't have to worry about college. All you have to worry about is how much you're making on your NIL deal.
There you go.
And so there you go. Yeah.
That's a whole different podcast. It'll be coming soon.
But that's that's some of the starting places we would say go. Look at those websites, look at specific colleges, look at, is there a certain major out there that typically gets more scholarships? Or
Ryan, how many scholarships can you apply for? Is there a limit?
No. You can apply to as many scholarships as you want, and that's one of the keys. We can give you all of this information right now. It's really only effective if you start early and you stay with it. I remember my junior and senior years starting late on some of these scholarships, and it was just all-consuming because it felt like you were always doing it to try and get that stuff in. Start early, right? If you've got kids and the kids, you got a 3-year-old and they don't have the slightest clue about college or whatever, go ahead and start helping out. Get the scholarships ready. Start looking at scholarships that they're going to be there. That's the big thing is start early and stay consistent with it until you get to, college.
Yeah. Here's a question we didn't cover. I wanted to ask. Let's say you start saving a little bit and you got extra money, or you got money in a 529 or an ESA, and let's say, hey, I've done well with school growing up. I'm not going to need all that money. I got all this scholarship money. Is there any way I can get those funds out?
Yeah. So normally if you pull money out of a 529 and it is not for education purposes, you get hit with a 10% penalty and you have to pay income tax on it. However, if you have gotten scholarships and there is money in that 529, you can actually pull that money out of the 529 in the amount of the scholarship, not pay any taxes or penalties on it.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
There you go. So you get that money out, penalty and tax-free, all the growth as well. There you go. That's good to know as well.
But it's only like, let's say you've got $20,000 in there and you get a $5,000 scholarship. You can't pull the full 20 out. You can only pull the 5 out.
Yeah. But there's still an incentive to get that scholarship money, even when you have, $50,000 saved up in your 529. There's still an incentive to, hey, you can still do good. Don't bank on that. Go ahead and super fund your scholarship or your college experience by putting that work in.
Yeah. So, and that is about it for today. Again, college is expensive. It can be a daunting task. There are a lot of resources out there to help you guys plan for it. If you want to start setting aside money for this, whether it's in an ESA or a 529, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to Tim. We can help you get it set up. I would say reach out to Robert, but he makes us open the accounts anyway. So don't even reach out to Robert. If you want to get it set up, reach out to one of us, and we'll go ahead and start getting that set up and get the planning going. So with that, this has been another episode of the My Father Said podcasts. I'm Ryan.
I'm Tim.
We'll see you next time.
The opinions voiced in this video are for general information only and are not specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful.